Waking Up to Serenity, Unlocking the Door to Emotional Sobriety by Angelo. Chapter 7, States of Being. The final piece in the jigsaw is to describe the various states of being that are available to all of us. When working with sponsees, I've developed a method of trying to explain what spiritual awakening is really all about. This approach has proven to be very helpful in visualizing where we are and where we're trying to get to. Science tells us that the universe is all energy and vibration, and that the material world is a momentary appearance rather than actual solid matter. The mechanism that gives us the experience of a material world is the VR headset of the mind. Whatever experience appears in the mind, there is an inner awareness of it. So far, so good. But is this really the truth? How can this be possible? Well, what we know for sure is that we are aware. Without awareness, there would be no experience. And we also know that we exist. We are aware of existing. This conscious awareness of existence is the same awareness that is aware of experience. The term that I'm going to use for this conscious awareness is consciousness. I'm also going to suggest that consciousness is the underlying reality of the universe. It's consciousness that creates the momentary experience of the world, and it is consciousness that is aware of its own creation. This may seem impossible to accept, but we have exactly this kind of experience when we dream. Each of us already knows this process of creation and simultaneous awareness. Dreams take innumerable forms, but typically we will be in them as our personal selves, together with other people and all manner of places and events. Often the people, places and events have some relevance to our previous experience, but sometimes they are in the realm of fantasy. The personal self in the dream experiences thoughts, images, emotions, sensations and perceptions just as in the waking state, and reacts to everything that takes place in the dream. Occasionally the experiences can be very real and intense, but less so on other occasions. It's all a bit of a mystery, yet we take dreaming to just be part of normal life. If we pause to consider what's actually happening here, then we can gain some important insight. The dream is obviously taking place in our mind, and it's reasonable to conclude that we're talking about the personal ego mind because we are personally in the dream. As well as being in the dream ourselves, we also create all of the other people, places and events. The whole dreamt world is created in our mind, and we then experience everything that happens in the dream. It all seems so real, yet it's just a dream. Consciousness, in its limited form as a personal mind, is creating an apparent reality out of itself, and is then experiencing its own creation from the perspective of itself. The potential within the dream seems unlimited, yet the apparent reality seems real to the personal self in the dream. When we awaken, we quickly realise that it was all just a dream, and we settle back into the real world of the waking state. We do this every night and tend to overlook the tremendous significance of what's just happened. We're quite happy to dismiss the dream world as unreal, even though it was all experienced as real during the actual dream. This is because we awaken into the waking state and immediately perceive that the dream state is different from the waking state, with one being unreal and the other being real. What we perhaps do not fully recognise is that both the dream and waking states are taking place in the mind. We assume that one is unreal, but the elements of experience in both states are the same. There's nothing to differentiate them from each other than our assumption that the material world is real and the dreamed world is unreal. This is despite the fact that our experiences are equally real and valid in each of the states. An alternative explanation would simply be that the real world of the waking state is itself dreamlike in nature. If we were able to wake up out of the waking state, then the dreamlike world would immediately be seen differently. This waking up out of the waking state is the foundational meaning of the term spiritual awakening. The term is also used more generally to include a transformative change in perception or outlook that provides a very different experience of life. Well, we're obviously familiar with the states of being asleep or being awake, but if we're going to wake up out of the waking state, then there must be other states that we can awaken into. I'm going to describe 4 states of being awake, each of which is possible for any human being. Each of the states is, if you like, a vibration of consciousness, with each one going deeper within us. Each of the states exists contemporaneously, so we can be in any state at any moment. I will be describing just 4 states, but there is in truth a continuous spectrum of possibility for the vibration of consciousness. When demonstrating this idea, I place 4 cushions in a column on the floor, one behind the other, to signify this spectrum. I can then move from one cushion to the next and speak from that particular state. Each cushion represents a particular point on the spectrum, but of course any point is possible. I mentioned in chapter 4 that I would return to the subject of water. We can use water metaphorically to explain what I mean by a continuous spectrum of vibration. Using our column of cushions, we can say that the cushion at the top or front of the column, cushion 1, is a low temperature vibration of H2O, which of course is solid ice. The next cushion back, cushion 2, would be a higher vibration, appearing as liquid water. Cushion 3 would be at an even higher vibration as gaseous steam. And cushion 4 would be the highest vibration, which would be the subatomic components of hydrogen and oxygen. So we have a spectrum of the same underlying molecule appearing as empty space, a gas, a liquid, or a solid, depending on the frequency of vibration. But H2O can vibrate at any temperature. The four states that I've chosen are just staging posts along the spectrum. There are an infinite number of possibilities. Some have names, but many do not. For example, slushy ice sits somewhere between ice and water, and boiling water sits somewhere between water and steam, and so on. So using this metaphorical depiction, we can envisage a spectrum of consciousness, with cushion 1 being at the lowest vibration and cushion 4 being the highest. And we now have a framework within which we can discuss the four states of being, whilst understanding that these are just staging posts on the infinite range of possibilities. Beginning then with cushion 1. This is a low vibration of consciousness and is known as the personal ego self. This is our usual waking state. Sitting on this cushion, we are fully identified as a personal body and mind. My name is Michael, this is my body, this is my life, I suffer with addiction, and this is me. We are intimately familiar with this state. It is the state that we've been in for our entire lives. It's also the state that the vast majority of human beings are in on a day-to-day basis. And all of them suffer from the bondage of self to a greater or lesser degree. Each personal mind creates a virtual reality, as previously described, and then experiences this reality as a personal self. This is life as we have known it. There is, however, an awareness of this personal experience. If the experience is taking place in the personal mind, including the experience of being me, then there must be a state behind or beyond the personal mind that is aware. Moving now to cushion 2. From this position, we can witness what's happening in cushion 1. We can see or perceive everything that takes place in the personal ego mind. It's all happening in front of us. This state of detached awareness is a higher vibration of consciousness. It still feels personal, in the sense that it still seems to be me being aware of my mind. Yet there is a distanceless distance between this state and the activity in cushion 1. This awareness is unaffected by anything that happens in the personal mind. It is still, silent, and hence peaceful. It simply watches and does not get involved. There remains a sense of existence, the sense that I am. But now I exist as an awareness rather than as a physical person. I'm like the eye of the storm. Whatever happens in cushion 1, I am untroubled and serene. Well, this is spiritual progress. This second cushion is referred to in Eastern traditions as the Atman. In the West, we tend to refer to it as the soul. It can be thought of as an individual drop of consciousness arising out of the vast ocean of being. It is individual in the sense that it has a sense of separation, but nevertheless it remains the entire ocean in a single drop. It is consciousness vibrating as an individual, but not at the lower vibration of a personal ego self. This is our individual spiritual self. If cushion 2 is a single drop arising out of the ocean, then there must be an ocean out of which it arises. This leads us to cushion 3, which is an even higher vibration of consciousness. Cushion 3 is universal consciousness. From cushion 3, we are aware of the individual nature of cushion 2. The ocean is aware of the single drop. And we are aware of being individually aware. This state of consciousness is still aware of its own existence and has the sense that I am, but it's aware of existing as the entire ocean rather than as a single individual drop. This is the level of consciousness from which all individual drops arise, and out of which the whole appearance of the material world is created. Notice my use of the word whole and its relationship to the word holy. There does not need to be anything religious or mystical about the idea that consciousness is holy. It's simply the underlying reality of the momentary presence of the apparently material world that we experience. The vast ocean of consciousness vibrates and creates infinite potential, and this creation is experienced through each of the individual drops. The third cushion is known in the East as Param Atman. In the West, it's referred to as Christ consciousness. This is a state of being that is beyond the limited individual state. It is universal. Interestingly, the word Catholic means universal, all-embracing, or all-inclusive. Another example of how seemingly religious words have a very straightforward meaning. It all begins to make sense. So we have an ocean of consciousness, but we also still have a fourth cushion. Well, this is the source of consciousness. This is the infinite, silent nothingness out of which consciousness arises. At the fourth cushion, there is just pure awareness. There's not even an awareness of existence, but just an awareness of consciousness in cushion 3. One might say that cushion 3 is the very first expression arising out of cushion 4, which is experienced as the sense of existence, or the sense that I am consciousness. There's not much more to be said about cushion 4, because it's prior to any language, and hence any words will fall short of trying to capture its essence. It just is, and nothing else can happen without it. It is the ultimate underlying ground of being, and is the source of all apparent reality. The Eastern word for cushion 4 is Brahman, whereas in the West we call it God. There are countless other words used throughout all cultures and languages, but these are all just words pointing to the same ultimate reality. The fact that human beings have been arguing and fighting about this world since the beginning of recorded history is all rather absurd and tragic when seen in this context. It all makes no difference to what already is and forever will be. There is no existence without cushion 4, and that's really all we need to know. We are because it is. The truth is simplicity itself. And if you know the truth, then the truth will set you free. In summary then, we have 4 cushions representing 4 states of being on an infinite spectrum of consciousness. Just as with our metaphorical water, consciousness becomes more condensed and restricted as the vibration reduces, eventually appearing as solid. All states of H2O are possible, and so too are all states of consciousness. I'd like to introduce one further metaphor to explore this idea of consciousness becoming increasingly condensed and restricted as the vibration decreases. The example is simply that of a bath sponge. In its natural state, a bath sponge is expanded and aerated. When we compress a bath sponge, it becomes smaller, condensed, and much less flexible. It becomes more solid and bound. If we then release the sponge, it immediately returns to its natural state. So when in a compressed state, the bath sponge has a built-in tension that restricts its natural state. As soon as it's released, the natural state returns. The compression creates a tension that longs to be released. And this longing is satisfied as soon as the compression stops being applied. So if we apply this metaphor to consciousness, then great insight emerges. Consciousness has to condense itself in order to experience its own creation. But in doing so, it creates an inbuilt tension that longs to be released back to its natural state. By the time consciousness manifests as cushion 1, it has a sense of restriction and bondage. It experiences what we call the bondage of self. There's an inbuilt tension and a desire for liberation. In the absence of any spiritual understanding, the personal self seeks this liberation in numerous forms of substance or behaviour. This is the hole in the soul that so many of us refer to when describing our lives and our addictions. We've been seeking release without realizing why we were doing it. The solution is obviously to let go of the bondage of self and return to a higher vibration of consciousness. This 4th piece of the jigsaw not only describes the potential states of being within each of us, but it also explains why we feel the way we do. It shows clearly that the solution has to be an inner movement towards a higher vibration of consciousness. In other words, the solution that we seek is a spiritual awakening. As we release the bondage of self, we naturally expand into a higher state. All of the cushions are already present, so all we have to do is let go.